Happy Independence Day, folks! This is a special edition of That's to Be a Movie. Hello, I'm C.W. Johnson Jr., and today we're going to be pitching the ultimate 4th of July weekend release. We're talking the greatest American action flick ever made. This is Jerry Bruckheimer produced, Michael Bay or Peter Berg directed, Randall Wallace written, Tom Hanks, Chuck Norris, Clint Eastwood, Mark Wahlberg starring with country pop singers in the soundtrack, over-the-top popcorn movie with plenty of firecrackers. We're talking about the Battle of New Orleans, baby!
Just like in the Johnny Horton song. Yeehaw!
Now, this epic story can be found in some great books, like The Battle of New Orleans, Andrew Jackson and America's First Military Victory, by Robert V. Remy, from Viking Press. Battle of New Orleans, a bicentennial tribute, edited by Gary Joyner, from Pelican Press. And for all you Arsco fans, Patriotic Fire, Andrew Jackson, and June Lafitte at the Battle of New Orleans, by Winston Graham, from Alfred M. Knopf Publishing. Thank you, Mr. Knopf. First, a little backstory on the War of 1812. The British were harassing American shipping at seas, impressing American sailors into service, which means they were kidnapping Americans and forcing them to do something against their will, which isn't very impressive. They were refusing to remove forts from off the frontier, like they said they would, in a treaty from 15 years before. And then, they were even encouraging some Native American tribes to murder American settlers. Well, we went to war. In the first 2-3 years when battling from the U.S., we were losing battles and campaigns and ships up all over the place, oftentimes disgracefully. Then the British Navy was running up all down the East Coast, burning and raping and pillaging places like Hampton, Virginia. And then they burned down the White House, and there was nothing General Butler could do about it except to yell, "This is America! Bomber!" Meanwhile, out in Tennessee, we have Andrew Old Hickory Jackson, who still bears a scar from a British sword from when an officer struck him during the American Revolution. He carried a grudge against the British for pretty much killing his whole family during the Revolutionary War, either directly in battle or indirectly from diseases contracted due to the harsh prison conditions on the prison ships where the British kept American POWs. That's how he lost his mother and brother. Oh, there's Rachel Jackson. There's a strong woman who deserves her own movie. Well, he's down in Nashville recovering from a gunfight when he hears that a band of Native Americans called the Red Sticks have massacred hundreds of men, women, and children down in Alabama at a place called Fort Mims. And he's like, "Oh no, they didn't." So he gets off his blood-stained mattress, and his wife Rachel is like, "Andy, that's the 3rd mattress you've used since you've been bleeding so badly." And he's like, "Woman, I don't have time to bleed." Well, he gets up off that there blood-stained mattress, and with his Tennessee Volunteers and regular Army units, he marches on down there to Alabama with folks like David Crockett. No, that's Fess Parker. Close, but no. Ah, for the love of Liberty Bell. No. Ah, there we go. So with folks like Crockett, Sam Houston, Lemuel P. Montgomery, and his Native American allies, he defeats the Red Sticks at a place called Horseshoe Bend, down there in Alabama. Montgomery gets killed. There's musket balls and arrows and war cries flying all over the place. Pause for trigger warning. Okay, I know about now some of you special snowflakes in college are going, "Oh my, Bernie Sanders, but Andrew Jackson was a genocidal maniac." Okay, yes, he did sign the Indian Removal Act 15 years later, which was a very wicked thing to do, but that was 15 years later. At the current situation, he actually saved a lot of Native American lives because they were starving, and he opened up the government warehouses and fed them. And then on top of that, he was riding through a village and saw about 2-3-year-old orphan boy. He was like, "Is anyone going to take care of him?" And all the Indians are like, "No, let's let him die. He doesn't have anyone to take care of him." He's like, "Not on my watch." And he adopts the kid. Now back to regular scheduled broadcast. Then he finds out that the British and Spanish have allied down Pensacola and are harboring some of the Red Sticks who have just tried to give Americans scout lifts. So he goes and he occupies Mobile. Then he repulses the British attack on Fort Boyer. Then he blows up the British ship Hermes. Boom! And he's like, "Get off my fort." Actually, it was more like Major Lawrence was saying, "Don't give up the fort." So then he goes and he attacks Pensacola, and he forces the Spanish to surrender. But not before the Redcoats blow up some of their forts. Boom! Meanwhile, down in Louisiana, many miles from Texarkana, we have the Lafitte brothers, who are pirates. The top dog is John. Then there is Pierre. Then there is Alexander, who also goes by the name de Monaco, who may or may not have been their brother. Together they run a pirate kingdom in the Bay of Bacteria, smuggling goods into old New Orleans via the bayous of South Louisiana. It's like something from Pirates of the Caribbean, only cooler, 'cause it's real. And John has a beef with the Spanish because they killed his Jewish grandfather during the Inquisition. Well, the British come to the coast of Louisiana and are like, Jean, would you like to guide the allies of the Spanish up the bayou so they can attack New Orleans? And John is like, give me 2 weeks to think about it. But in the back of his mind, he's thinking, not a good plan. So John goes up to New Orleans and he tells the Americans there, guys, you're about to be attacked. But the officials are like, fake news. So they send their navy to wipe out his pirate kingdom. John is forced to burn down all of his warehouses, and he sees his brothers, like Pierre, and all of his buddies get arrested. And he stands there among the burning wreckage like William Defoe and Platoon, and he throws up his hands and yells, no! And then he goes back up to the Americans and is like, hey, look, you're the Americans. You're the good guys. I will fight for you if you let my people go. Savez? At first, Andrew Jackson's like, we're not fighting with banditry. But then some folks, like the Louisiana government, are like, there's like 15,000 British regular troops coming this way, and they're all trained, disciplined soldiers, and there's less than 4,000 of us, and we're not regular, trained, disciplined soldiers, so I think we could use all the help we could get. So Old Hickory's like, okay, John, today is a good day to die. It's like that moment in Lord of the Rings when Gimli and Legolas, the elf and the dwarf, are at Helm's Deep, and they're about to be overrun by 10,000 orcs and all those other elves show up to help them fight. The British start showing up about December 13th, and start landing their troops on American soil via Lake Byrne. So this Navy guy, Daniel T. Patterson, he attacks them and does a lot of damage, but is knocked out of the way because this is the Galactic Empire of the High Seas we're talking about, people. Well, the British make their way up by Bienview and capture the Villeray plantation, along with a Major Gabriel Villeray, who was supposed to be guarding the place. They capture him, but he redeems himself by yelling, freedom! And jumps out a window and escapes through a swamp. Then he hides in a tree and has to kill his favorite pet dog so it won't give away his position. Then he runs through the swamp and alerts General Jackson to the invasion. Well, the British have a beachhead on American soil, and their top gun, General Pakenham, is like, we have red shirts and you have dirty shirts. That makes us the superiors. So we will easily defeat you and have Christmas dinner in New Orleans. And General Jackson's like, go ahead, make my day. Then he orders a counterattack on the British camp at night. There's musket balls and butts flying everywhere, swords and knives stabbing left and right, fists and bayonets all over the place. Then 2 American ships, Louisiana and the Carolina, come down the Mississippi River and start firing cannonballs into the British camp. These ships are manned by the Batarian pirates. This attack slows down the British advance and unnerves them because the Americans play dirty and not according to European rules of warfare. Then General Jackson retreats to the Rodriguez Canal line. There he takes his stand. He declares martial law, and like the Indian king in the Two Towers, he orders all able-bodied males and their weapons up to the front line. Now here's the kicker. One of the reasons the British thought they could easily capture New Orleans was because of its diverse population. They figured all the French and Spanish wouldn't have any loyalty to the Americans. But they were wrong. Americans of all stripe, color, and creed come out to fight. All along the Rodriguez line you have Irish Americans, Spanish Americans, French Americans, German Americans, Portuguese Americans, backwoodsmen, Creole gentlemen, members of the legislature, freemen of color, slaves, Native Americans, and of course, pirates. In the churches, there are Ursuline nuns and prostitutes praying side by side and together, getting ready to take care of the wounded. It's like if Sesame Street went to war. Trigger warning. Okay, right about now, some of you special snowflakes are saying, but, oh my Huffington Post, Andrew Jackson, he owned slaves. He can't be a hero. Oh yes, he did own slaves, but he can also be a hero. In fact, he is a hero. Because you see, at the Battle of New Orleans, there are people that did not want the freemen of color, the African Americans, to even be fighting on the American side. They didn't want them to have the same equal pay as they, or even the same equal reward as them. But Andrew Jackson, he was like, either they fight with you and they receive the same pay as you, or you lose your city. Which one do you want, pal? So in a way, that makes Andrew Jackson one of the first civil rights heroes in history. Caprice? Meanwhile, the USS Carolina is harassing the British so much with her bombarding that they have a battle with her, and they blow the Carolina up. Boom! It turns the tables like killing Optimus Prime in the Transformers movies does. So, the British now think that they can advance on New Orleans and sweep Americans aside because, hey, if they can defeat the British, surely they can defeat the Americans, and they can plunder the wealth of New Orleans. But General Jackson, Old Hickory, he's like, stay away from her, harlot. So for the next week, they have artillery duels and special raids ops on each other. Pierre Jugget and his Choctaw Indians leap like alligators from log to log as they harass the British. Then you have Hines Mississippians and Coffee's Tennesseans, who, for years of using their long rifles to get their dinner, are expert marksmen. Then the Americans, they fill all these houses with explosives, and when the British advance and capture the houses, the Americans blow them up. Boom! Well then, on January 8th, the big attack comes. General Pakenham decides to unleash the full might of his power, because he believes the American soldiers are so undisciplined that they will run away at the mere sight of his well-regulated, well-trained, well-disciplined veteran army. But General Jackson and John Lafitte see the British come marching out of the fog, and they're like, "Fill your hand, you SOE!" The Redcoats quickly learn that even though they're in a place settled by the French, they aren't fighting the French. They're mowed down by the long rifles of the dirty shirts, and the few that make it to the top of the American ramparts over which the Congrove Red Rockets red glare glow are quickly captured or killed. There's cannonballs and bullets whizzing through the air. There's drums and the screams of the wounded. It takes about 3 bullets and pieces of grape shot to bring General Pakenham down. One of the bullets is fired by a free man of color. So many British officers are killed that the poor British soldiers don't know what to do. Meanwhile, on the west bank of the Mississippi River, the British drive away a few Kentuckians under command of a guy named Morgan. Then they take their cannons and they aim them at the flank of the Americans on the east side of the river. And they're like, "Surrender, General Jackson, we have you outflanked." But General Jackson's like, "Not hardly." Because you see, so many British officers have been killed that the last remaining one was like, "Hey guys, I think I'm going to declare this battle over." So technically, the Americans, they knew that on the east bank, but the British on the west bank didn't know that. So technically the British won the battle, but they lost. And we won because we're America. There are thousands of British casualties compared to the few hundred American wounded and a few dozen American dead. Down the river, the British tried to attack Fort Phillips, but thanks to the help of a guy named Henry Miller Shreve, who used a steamboat for the first time in warfare to transport ammunition, they didn't succeed. So finally they retreated, and the Americans were like, "Hasta vista, baby. Get off my continent." There's a huge celebration in New Orleans, and for years, January the 8th is celebrated all around the nation with the same fervor as Independence Day in July. For the War of 1812 is often called the Second War of Independence. It proved once and for all that America could govern itself and hold its own against European powers and hold its place among the nations. It was a triumph of the common man over the bureaucracy of the British Army. But then the American Civil War came and the North stopped celebrating it because they figured they were the North and they won, so they were going to downplay anything that had to do with Southern history. And then you had guys like Charles Adams who came along and were like, started criticizing General Jackson, saying that the Battle of New Orleans was unnecessary because the Peace of Ghent had already been signed or something like that. And apparently he thought he could do stuff like that because his granddaddies were the presidents, and apparently he didn't like Jackson because Jackson beat one of his granddaddies during a presidential election, like actually beat him into the White House. He didn't beat him like he did a couple other guys, but you get the point. But here's the thing. If the British had captured New Orleans, it would have meant that America was hemmed in on 4 sides by European powers, empires like Spain. All the wealth of the Midwest that was only possible by river traffic down to Port New Orleans would have probably stopped. Britain would have probably ignored the Treaty of Ghent and fought to keep this important toehold on American territory. Plus, the patriotic fervor that swept the nation after news of this victory convinced the Yankees up in New England who were at the Hartford Convention not to secede. So it's very important, no matter what some New England Yankees like Charles Adams says. That is why the Battle of New Orleans deserves to have a summer blockbuster release. Cecil D. DeMille did make a few movies back in the day called The Buccaneer that focused on Joel and Lafitte, but unfortunately they haven't really stood the test of time and are kind of lackluster compared to the actual battle itself. The actual battle deserves a Hans Zimmer soundtrack with a Transformers budget. It also deserves to be filmed on location in Louisiana. But unfortunately, since the folks down in Baton Rouge have capped the film tax credit program, we're not likely to see the large-scale reductions with million-dollar budgets that are capable of making the epic spectacle that the Battle of New Orleans deserves. Because it is an epic portrayal of American exceptionalism triumphing over the world's most powerful empire at the time, because it highlights the American values of individual courage and responsibility despite your color or creed, I believe that the events surrounding the January 8th, 1815 Battle of New Orleans should be an epic blockbuster summer movie. America! Boom, 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 bang, 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 boom, boom, bang, bang, bang. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, and share with all your friends. Then let us know in the comments section what great story from American history that highlights American exceptionalism you think would make a great July the 4th weekend release.